Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Biggleswade Town Council. I'm informing everyone present that this meeting will be filmed and live streamed to YouTube, and by your presence, you're deemed to have consented to be filmed and to the use of those images and sound recordings. Can I please request that when councillors are speaking, not to disclose any personal information of an individual, as this might infringe the rights of that individual and breach data protection rules. Okay, I have one apology for absence from Councillor Bond. Do I have any declarations of interest, please? None, thank you. There are no town mayor's announcements. So public open session, I don't think we've got any public either online or here. So we're getting through the agenda very quickly. We don't have an invited speaker. Do we have any members' questions? Can I tick another one off? Okay. Right, on to minutes of the meetings then. So I'm looking at the meeting of the 9th of November, the council meeting. Going through for accuracy first, anything on page 1, which is page 6 of the pack. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Councillor Page.
Yes, so item, what is it, 9A, so the yellow lines on Aberset Close, the west side. So we say here that it was resolved that the town council objects to this proposal. What we haven't said is on what grounds. So, you know, I think we objected on the grounds of the loss of resident parking. Unnecessary loss of resident parking. So I think the minutes need to reflect that, and if we could just double check what we sent to Central Beds to make sure that that point was reiterated to them as well. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Anything else on page 10? Page 11? Okay. May I then sign those minutes as a correct record, please? Thank you. Now I'm going through for matters arising. So any matters arising from page 6, page 7, page 8. Councillor Alban.
Yeah, I think with the various proposals for weighting restrictions, we did talk about writing to CBC to ask for the reasons behind these. I wonder if we've done that and if we've heard anything back, because the given reasons weren't very well. There wasn't very much of them.
The answer is very straightforward. In the minutes, it doesn't sort of refer to that being resolved. So
it is. I'm sorry, it is. It's the last item on that. It was resolved to ask CBC why residents on the streets.
So sorry, I wasn't at the meeting, so
we don't know the answer to your question.
Thank you.
I see. Yeah. Sorry, I misunderstood the question as well.
Okay, so I was on page 8. Anything else on page 8? Page 9, page 10, page 11.
Sorry,
page 10, Councillor Strawn.
if I may, Madam Mayor, have we had a response to the letters that we were going to write at the end of 9A, the resolution to write to CBC requesting a summary for the proposals and explaining why, and the writing why residents on the streets have not been formally informed?
That's what we were just.
No, I just pointed it was there. So have we had a response?
No,
right, no, we haven't had any.
We've just been told there isn't a response.
Right, sorry, I didn't hear that part of it.
Okay, thank you. I'm moving on from the minutes then. Items for consideration, and the first one is the request from Sandytown Council for support for their motion about introducing a bus service between Bedford and Biggleswade. Comments, please, colleagues. Councillor Woodhead, yeah.
Thank you. It seems a very reasonable request to me, and I think it's something that as a council we should support it. Clearly, there isn't any public transport availability between Bedford and Biggleswade at the moment on a Sunday. So I think it would certainly, for things like visiting the hospital and so on, it would certainly open things up for people. I'm also aware of a similar request as well, which we can maybe ask the town clerk to look into, of a bus link between Biggleswade and Cambridge that's being proposed, I think, by Cambridge County Council, which also would be of interest, I think, locally. But I know it's not the question being asked here, but it's sort of broader connection now. There's more funding around for bus services. But I think in terms of the Bedford Biggleswade one, we should definitely support it and write to Sandytown Council saying so.
Thank you. Any more comments? Councillor Page?
Just to clarify, I think the suggestion from Sandytown Council is not to write to them, but to write to Central Beds directly, with the wording that is outlined on page 12 of our pack. So I think it's to write to Central Beds. Just to clarify what Councillor Woodhead is proposing, although I do support that, perhaps we can copy the town clerk from Sandy on it, just so that they're aware that Biggleswade is supporting them on that. They have supported us on some quite important matters recently, and I think we can give our backing to Sandytown Council on this one.
I don't think there's an issue with that, is there, colleagues?
Can I just update members ever so briefly? For the first time since I've been here anyway, we had a joint planning meeting with the clerk at Sandy this week. So just wanted to evidence to you that we're trying to work together in a more cohesive way, and there's more updates to follow. Thank you.
Thank you. So all those in favour of supporting Sandytown Council's motion? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And then the second item for consideration is CBC's housing allocation scheme, which we have in our papers. Are there any comments? Councillor Pullinger, please.
Thank you. So I think I've had a read of the consultation. It is fair to say it's quite complex and there's a lot of information there to fully assess. I think it's important that we as a council do provide feedback to this consultation. There's a lot of specific questions in the consultation questionnaire that I think we ought to address, but I think the best way for us to do this would be certainly to have a bit more time to consider it, but secondly to see if it would be possible to get Central Beds officer to come to the council, probably I guess at our first meeting in January before the deadline, and we can ask them questions and then respond following that at that meeting.
Do I have a seconder for that proposal? Thank you very much. So are we all happy to defer this to the January meeting and try to get an officer along, Councillor Page?
I mean, do we need to defer that long, and are we such an important consultee that we need an officer to come and address us? Look, I'm very mindful that we have had officers come over various issues. They have been quite great. They have been quite generous with their time. They were over education, but I do think we need to be careful that we're not calling them to come and speak to us at every consultation that they do, because we do have these kind of consultations 3, 4, 5 times a year on various topics. So personally, I don't think this is the kind of thing that we need an officer to come and talk to us on. So I'm not going to be supporting this, but others will form their own view. I don't think it's enough of a priority for us.
Councillor Pullinger, I thought your proposal was for an officer to come to the January meeting. Yeah, so therefore they could come in on Zoom. So we wouldn't be necessarily asking them to come here, and it's very unlikely that a CBC officer would come to the meeting in person anyway. So we have a proposal, and it's been seconded, to defer until the first meeting in January and to request some clarification on the key issues from an officer present at that meeting. All those in favour, please. Against? Abstain? Yeah, okay, well, that's passed. Right, we're now on to very confusing the way that's written. There are no items for information. We're now on to planning applications. The first one is 3 Lilac Grove. Comments, please.
Propose no objection, subject to neighbours.
Are we all happy with that? Now, the next one is an appeal. So it's whether we want to add anything to our resolution of before, because it will all be dealt with by written submissions according to the letter we have. Councillor Pullinger.
I propose we note it, and our previous objections will be forwarded as part of that.
Councillor Strawn.
Yes, I'm a bit concerned because when I looked at it at the weekend and looked at the letter that we sent into this application on the 7th of April, it doesn't say what's said on our agenda. So I think we were not objecting to according to the letter that was sent into the Central Beds in April. So I'm a bit confused by what's on the agenda here tonight because of that. Because I think we could be voting against what we've already said or supporting something we've already said. I don't think it was at all clear from the paid case documents.
Councillor Pullinger.
If that's the case, then I'll withdraw my proposal because I was basing it on the information in the agenda in terms of what our objection was.
Are you able to enlighten us, Councillor Strawn, in exactly what is on the CBC website? Because I have to say I haven't looked at it either.
From recollection, and it's a couple of days ago since I looked at it, it was referring to saying that we had no objection because it was for one dwelling. And if you look at our comments on here, it says for 4 houses. So that doesn't tie in with what the application is. So I am concerned that we're not actually dealing with the correct comments from ourselves. I think we have objected historically to the items on this particular plot, but not necessarily the one that's the subject of this motion.
Okay. Well, I did look at the drawings earlier. Isn't it a house and a bungalow now that they're proposing? Are colleagues able to confirm that? Sorry? No, but if you look at the papers, there are 2 separate dwellings on the drawings. Councillor Fage.
So we have consistently objected to development here. I know, I think there was a bit of a debate on it last time. I'm pretty sure it was a split vote, but on the 2 occasions that it's come to this council, we've objected both times. I think we saw it once and it was a house. We saw it a second time, it was a bungalow. Not quite sure what we're seeing now, but a lot of the principles that are laid out here, that there is poor access, that there's a lack of capacity for the road, that it's unclear how construction lorries will get there, the issues over one way and the overbearing nature of any property, they're all relevant. So I'd like to propose that, whatever's said has been said, but we need to write in again to state that this is our position as a town council, regardless of what may or may not have gone to Central Beds in the past. I'd be very supportive of moving what's written here and reiterating that to Central Beds Council and sending it afresh.
Well, the drawings show a bungalow and a 2-storey house, although it looks as if the 2nd story is not quite a full story, if you know what I mean. Councillor Pullinger.
So I've just clarified what was sent to Central Beds, because I've got access, and we did resolve no objections subject to neighbours on that around the 7th of April, according to what was sent to Central Beds. So I think we need to check our minutes of that meeting.
That is not what we decided. I'm sure we're all certain we were against it, weren't we?
May I?
Councillor North.
Yeah, that is not what we decided. That may be what it's written down there, but there's some confusion obviously gone on here. And I support the proposal by Councillor Van Fage that we should basically send an objection as it is written down here this time, make sure, obviously there's been a confusion previously, so if we make sure we get this in now. There's a clear objection to it.
But we'll have to change the 4 houses to what's on the drawing, which I think is a bungalow and a house,
Well,
but we'll have to check that. Councillor Alban, have you?
You don't, sorry, Chairman, it doesn't say 4 houses, does it?
It does in our response. It says a new residential house at the top, but our response is the right of way access for 4 houses. So we can't just lift it completely. We have to.
We're talking about this item B, are we? 11B.
Yes, and down
Well,
here.
no, what I'm saying is we should simply say we object to this planning application for the following reasons. Objection due to 1, poor access, lack of capacity of the road, 3, raising the issue of construction lorries, right away access. Oh, for 4 houses, yeah.
That's what I'm objecting to.
We'll say 4 houses.
Okay.
All right, well, that to be modified. And we'll just take away, delete 4 houses, yes.
Yes, it's as I keep saying, I think it's a bungalow and a house. Councillor Alban and then Councillor
Thank
Fage.
you. There obviously is some confusion here, but would it be simpler if we just supported central beds determination and supported them rather than the appellant in this case, rather than go back to our historical sort of comments?
Well, I think what's being proposed, I think that's a good idea to make that point that we support central beds determination, but for these reasons, because we've got to have something that overrides of the whatever's on the website. Councillor.
I just wonder if I can have some clarity. So there is a letter in the pack in relation to this, dated the 9th of November, essentially explaining to us that it is an appeal, but representations must be made by the 14th of December, so we have some time, and essentially asking us to modify or withdraw or restate our previous representation. So it doesn't appear to be anything new. It is a planning appeal if this letter is correct.
Yes, but what we're saying is the letter that's on the website alongside this is not the right information. So we do need to modify our response in the way that we've been talking about.
Yes.
Councillor Fage, then Councillor Pullinger.
May I just clarify my proposal then, because it's obvious that this is a confusing one. So I think what Councillor Alban says is very sensible. So I think we should say that we're supporting central beds on this as well. So my proposal, I'm on the wrong sheet of paper, is that we should write respond in the same way that we do to normal planning applications, even though it's an appeal, that we object on the grounds of 1, poor access, 2, lack of capacity on the road, 3, the issue of how construction lorries will get to it. That's striking any reference to the number of properties there, but how construction lorries will get to it. 4, the fact that the road should really be one way and it's going to become one way at some point. This is premature. And number 5, that 2 stories would be overbearing. So if we respond on those grounds, say that we support Central Bedfordshire Council in their position, and make clear that this response is the response that we give to the planning application as well, and that anything that may or may not be on the planning portal is not relevant, and this is what we should focus on. And perhaps there's a side point there to have a conversation with the planning officer to make sure that no objection, however that got there, is taken off of the planning portal, and that this is put on.
Councillor Pullinger.
Well, I'd support the response. I don't think the last point we can make in terms of telling central beds to change something that we did actually write to central beds, and the reason their planning portal shows no objection is because that was the letter that we wrote to central beds. In error, looking at the minutes of the meeting, we did resolve to object it, and that is, and what is in the agenda for this evening's meeting is what we resolved at the meeting. For some reason, that is not what was written to central beds, and we need to make sure that that doesn't happen again, and then that the decisions that we make are the decisions that are recorded and sent to Central Bedfordshire.
Councillor Strawn.
I must support what Councillor Pullinger has said. I think he summed it up quite well about the issues that arise. He's had the opportunity of looking at the actual minutes from that meeting, and it seems quite clear that a mistake was made in our letter to CBC. And I think to a certain extent we've probably got to hold our hand up in putting in our objection and saying that in fact this was the minute and this letter was incorrect. Otherwise it makes a nonsense of that letter.
I think we all know what we want to do, don't we? I don't think we need to go through it again. So all those in favour of objecting, supporting central beds and objecting on the grounds that have been said, please. That's unanimous. Thank you. Right, 31 Bluebell Close. Comments?
No comment.
Subject to neighbours.
Subject to neighbours, thank you. 34 Courtlands Drive, rear extension.
Subject to neighbours.
Subject to neighbours, thank you. 51 The Balk, new pitched roof to replace first floor flat roof. Any comments? Subject to neighbours
Subject to
again.
neighbours.
Home Court, proposed warehouse. Home Court, the house off the A1, not Home Court Avenue. Although it looks as if some of those buildings are big warehouses along the back of the houses in Home Court Avenue when you drive up the road. Sorry, I shouldn't say things like that.
No objection.
No objection. Are we all happy with no objection? Yeah. Subject to neighbours, although I don't think there are any. Yeah. It's 6 Cedar Avenue, large extension.
Subject to neighbours.
Yeah. Are we all right with that? Yeah. Phase 6 Stratton Business Park. Logo, illuminated signs, whatever.
No objection.
No objection. Horsmere Close, replacing conservatory roof with a tiled roof. No
Subject to
objection.
neighbours.
Subject to neighbours. 1 The Close, this is works to trees. Remove a lime tree.
Just note it, can't we?
Note it, yeah. And then Brigham House, more trees, noted. Right, and then we come to the planning application outcomes.
Before we can I just make a point about the letters? I know that council Knight's intervention was helpful with their an explanation, but other than that, the majority of the information is within our things. I'm just wondering whether there's an actual need for these letters here. It's an observation, it's additional paper, we're printing it off. But from my point of view, I didn't feel that there was a huge benefit to having it, other than on the one in relation to the appeal. So just what members' thoughts are.
Yes, I don't think we've had letters in the past, but as you say, for appeals, and we've usually had the tree letters because otherwise we don't have the information. So are we happy to ask officers not to copy those letters? Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm moving on still to planning application outcomes. Are there any queries, comments?
Note.
Okay, noted. Yeah. So I think the items for information before at number 10 shouldn't have been there, should it? We've now got items for information, temporary closure of part of Bridleway 58. Any comments, anybody? Councillor Fage?
I haven't personally got a problem with this, but I'd love to know what the plan for Stratton Business Park is in terms of what it's going to look like in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years time, because there are a lot of rights of way around there. Look, I appreciate that there are reasons why industrial units can be built quicker and the planning process is different for them in order to encourage companies to come and invest in Biggleswade, which has been a tremendous success. But I don't think there's any harm in us asking Central Beds what the wider, what is Stratton, how much further is it going to grow? What's going to happen to the existing rights of way as well? Because this does cause some disruption to a right of way, albeit one which is not used that much, partly because of its location. But maybe it's something for our ward councillors to pick up and see if we can get a bit of a response for this council, because I get very lost when I go around Stratton Business Park, and I'd love to know what they actually want to do with it. I'm not saying we've got any problem with it, but just a bit of visibility for this council would be really helpful, I think.
I think that's right. Councillor Foster.
I quite have to say that way. I think it's a completely useful point. I think maybe something we can bring to joint committee as well. Maybe we can get a presentation or something in relation to it, but I'll come back to you on that.
Yes, I think that's a good idea to put it on the next joint committee agenda. So, having decided, sorry, Councillor Strawn.
Thank you. I agree totally with what's been said, but this was on the agenda last meeting, which we have got a record in the minutes that it was noted. The thing that I noticed particularly is that this time it said that there was a road that the bridleway is being altered for, and I'd quite like to know what on earth that road is going to be. It's clearly so that the Stratton Industrial Park can be opened up, I believe, looking at where it's situated. But I think we ought to know. And the next item on the agenda was again on the last month's agenda, and there's a minute there, and I'll have got a comment to make on that in accordance with that minute.
Okay, so I think in general we're requiring more information about what's happening on this site, and we'll see what we can bring forward. So what does council want to decide on the Bridleway 58? Are we noting it at the moment with the note that we need more information?
Yeah. Yes.
Are we happy?
Are we writing for more information at the same time as noting it?
No, I think we'll bring it to BJC.
Sorry?
Sorry. So basically, I propose that we can note this for now, but with the intention of bringing something more formal to Biggleswade Joint Committee so they can examine Central Bedford's plan for the business park.
And then for the Joint Committee to bring it to this council?
If they see fit.
Because I think council would like to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So since the Joint Committee isn't going to be meeting for a while, might it be best to write, as Councillor Strawn has said, and ask for the information, but at the same time bring the whole situation with Stratton Business Park forward to Joint Committee?
Yeah.
Is that the best thing to do? So are colleagues happy that we note this, but we want more of an explanation of what's happening with the rights of way on and around Stratton Business Park? Are we all happy with that?
And the wider plan for it, yeah.
Yeah. Right, so further comments on footpath 24, item B. Councillor Strawn.
Yes, this was item 11A on the last agenda. The minutes there, and we were writing to Central Beds Council to ask why this footpath needs to be closed and point out the map provided appears to be incorrect. I didn't ask that under any matters arising, but it seems that we haven't had a response to that. And why is it, if not, why is this on the agenda for the second week running?
I don't know.
No. I just wanted to inform councillors that we have written to CBC to ask them for some further information on why they needed to close for a month, as per Councillor Alban's request. And they came back and said that this is to allow for clearance of vegetation, groundworks to take place, and for erection of the boundary fencing and landscaping to be completed. Very generic response, but no response on the map and where they seem to got confused.
Okay, are we content with that then, now that we know the work that needs to be done? Yes? Yeah, okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to move on because there's nothing to decide on that now, is there? We've noted the response. Trinity Methodist, nice photograph of their defibrillator and the thank you letter. Can we note that, please?
Note it.
Yeah. And we still don't have any members of the public. So we now have to move the resolution to go into exempt items into private session. So I'll declare this part of the meeting closed.